How did you feel about their first sex scene, Ness?
I loved it. I'm reading it right now.
Oh.
I'm reading it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Romancing the Monsters. This week we have a very exciting book to talk about. We are talking about...
You're Marge.
Oh yes, I am Marge. That is true.
And I'm Saf, by the way.
Hi, I'm Ez.
Ez is like, what? Anyways, today's book is A Court of Frost and Start. No. What am I saying?
Whoa.
Wrong book.
Wrong book, Marge. That's
What is going on with me? A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I am so sorry. It is not A Court of Frost and Starlight. That came out like 3 years ago. Jeez. Okay.
Whew. This book.
How we plan to talk about this book is by parts. So this might be into 2 parts depending on how long this is. So you'll know by the end of the episode if you gotta wait for another one to get the whole thing. And I'm thinking we should say what we thought of the book first and then go into... Yeah? Okay. So...
Yeah, I'm down with that.
A Court of Silver Flames, guys. What did you think? A long-awaited book. We've been waiting our whole lives for this. Cassian and Nesta finally did the deeds.
We waited, what, like 2-3 years for this book?
Oh, yeah. If not 4 years.
It's a long time.
Since 2016 was like in A Court of Mist and Fury when they first interact, and we were all like, they gotta be a thing, huh?
True.
Plus that infamous what was it called? Like the short story, the bonus scene with them in Akamath, which was delicious, by the way.
Oh, so good.
So, what did you think? Let's start with you. She's like, no.
So, I loved it.
You did?
I did. I'm
genuinely surprised by that. I don't know why.
Really? Why?
I don't know why.
Why are you
I don't know. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, this is cool.
Yeah. I loved it. There were little moments where I'm gonna question, I guess. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, I loved it. I was one of the people that didn't really like Nesta. Yeah, so I wasn't as bad as like, the fandom where they hate her, but I was one of the ones that she wasn't my favorite.
But you were open to her story from the start.
Yeah.
Okay. Because some people were way against it.
But I loved it. I loved her journey. I loved the way it was nice to see her process and, going through it and overcoming a lot of things. I love Cassian. I really love Cassian.
I think this book is like a little bit jarring compared to the others in the sense that to me this felt a lot more character driven than plot driven. Especially if you compare it to like the first 3 books in the original trilogy where it's like, yeah, sure, it's very character driven as well, but like the plot is really important in those books, and like you're constantly moving, and like you have this bigger thing that's unraveling in the background, and the characters are constantly going left and right trying to find things, and this is kind of jarring in comparison. And it did take me, sorry, I'm like going into what I thought of the book.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's okay.
No, it's fine.
It was a little bit jarring for me at first, probably because as much as I wanted this to be about Nesta and like her journey, I don't think I had fully realized what that meant for the bigger plot. And in this
Okay.
book, it's kind of like you spend more time with Nesta, sort of, you know, day-to-day life, just like slowly learning things and like, you know, sort of learning to love herself again. And like, you know, there's ups and downs, and it's the you know, the plot, quote unquote plot, is like not I mean, it's Nesta. She's the plot. Like, there's no real adventure, I would say. I mean, there's bits and pieces here and there for sure, but like, that was something I had to get used to. I will say, this is not my favorite book of the series, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, I wasn't bored at any points, but I truly expected to connect with it more than I did, and that probably is my own fault. Maybe I went into it with too high expectations, or expecting I would like super connect with it, just because personally I loved Nesta before going in. Like, she was the one character that I was like, oh yeah, for sure, I'll for sure relate to Nesta more than I did Farah. And for whatever reason, though I thoroughly enjoyed the book, it didn't have those high emotional moments for me. Like, those emotional highs that I'm so used to with Sarah J. Maas's books. Like, she always manages to, even Crescent City, like, I'm not going to spoil anything because my two co-hosts have not read Crescent City yet. But Crescent City
I
is
will
like,
say, though, that this book has kind of made me want to read it more.
well, that's good.
Continue.
Crescent City is a tough book to get through. I feel like the first 200 pages especially. So without saying anything, I was like, ooh, I don't know that this story can really reach those highs for me at any point just because of those first 200 pages. But even in Crescent City, boy, did those last 300 pages like had me on the ground sobbing. You know what I mean? So I was like,
wow,
why did this book not manage that? You know, if even a book that I wasn't connecting with in the beginning managed it, why did Nesta's story not manage it in the end? I don't know. It's kind of a
do you
question
have an
left
answer for that?
unanswered. No, it's kind of like,
okay.
I don't know why I was never fully able to like get involved with it, but I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not, you know, it was just not my favorite, but there's a lot of positive things about it. What about you, Zeph?
Okay, so I think it's really interesting because we have like 3 different perspectives and opinions on the book. For me, like, I've been
hated it.
A Nesta. Oh, I hated it so
Did you,
much.
Seth?
No. I've been like a
Can you
Nesta
imagine?
stan, I guess, using the new lingo. From like the get-go, like when we first, like, not when we first met Nesta, but like when Cassian and her had like their interactions, and like you actually see more of her character in book 3 and like all of that. Anyways, I love Nesta, and I was so excited to get her book because, you know, I'm all about redemption and like personal growth and like all of that stuff. So yeah, I was excited, and it's funny because like what you're saying, that you didn't feel emotionally like connected or like it didn't move you in that sort of sense. I was moved. I was sobbing. I couldn't stop crying in certain scenes, and like, I don't know, I just felt like this book was so realistic, and like Sarah J. Maas like really did her research in terms of like mental health and like what everyone goes through if like they're suffering through depression or like any other like anxiety even. Like, she did such a good job of like portraying that with her words, and it honestly hits so close to home, and like you see these characters going through certain things, and like, yes, it's a fantasy world, yes, like the plot was there, but like you said, the plot was Nesta. It was her journey. And I kind of like, me being me, I was like, whenever they would go on like their adventures to, you know, find things for the dread trove, I was like, great, I want to see more Nesta and Cassian. I want to see more Nesta and Gwen, more Emery, more like everyone else. I wanted to see like that personal development. And yeah, this book really delivered on that for me, and I just loved every single second of it.
So you cried. You had your crying moments. You didn't have any of those moments, March?
There's one moment that I felt the emotion, but like usually with like a Sarah J. Maas book, I would be sobbing, and yet I was just kind of tearing up, but not really. I'll talk about it when we get to that moment, but
okay.
Like, it didn't, I don't know why. And maybe, honestly, it might be, like, just because I myself have been going through rough times lately, and maybe I was like unconsciously sort of trying to take a step back from the book in a way, like
because it was hitting too close to home, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like maybe I like unknowingly was trying to disconnect with what was happening, and maybe that's why it didn't hit me as much as it could have. I don't know. So, but you know, I'm not mad. Like I said, it's
no.
I got my Nessian smut, so like.
The smut.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, or do we jump into?
Did you cry? Did you have any teary moments?
I had teary moments, yeah. And I didn't expect to have teary moments with her, but I did.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. I loved this book. It was like up there for me with Akamath, for sure, according to Mist and Fury. I can't decide which one I like more. Like, it's not even a competition, but I love them both. And they're both, like, stories about healing. And I just, for some reason, Sarah J. Maas really, like, hits you with it. And it just, like, leaves an impression.
She's so good at, like, stories about healing, but not necessarily physical healing, although sometimes that's a part of it, but mental, like, just trying to overcome something. She did it amazingly with Aelin and Heir of Fire, and then, what's his name?
Kale.
And oh my god, Tower of Dawn. And then this one, you could even say that Bryce's story in Crescent City is also a form of healing, more like grief. So she does it really well, and she knows it. So I'm not mad that she keeps doing it. And to be fair, like, all those stories feel different to me. I mean, even Akamath, like you said, is a story of healing too, in a way. So they all have something different, for sure.
But also, like you said, it's similar to you know, Akamath, but also unlike Bryce, I haven't read that yet, or like Kale's story of healing. But like, she makes them unique. She makes them different, and I don't know, like, I love Sarah J. Maas. Like, I will forever say she's one of my favorite writers because of how she portrays certain situations in, like, a fantasy world. Like, I don't know, man. I just love her. Anyways, let's move on.
All right. So, part 1, Novice. What happens in this part? And we'll probably interrupt multiple times. And
that's fine. I'm gonna do, like, a quick little, like, rundown about what happens in each part, because as we, like, go through, because I feel like as we talk about more about the plot. I don't want to, like, repeat. Anyways, so in this part, we meet a broken Nesta. You know how, like, she's been in Akafas. She apparently spent a big ton of money, Rhys's money, and apparently everyone's had enough. And they kind of stage an intervention for Nesta, and they tell her basically that she needs to go to the House of Wind to train with Cassian and work in the library, or you need to get gone, basically. And so she obviously decides to stay in Valaris and, you know, say, like, she says she's going to do all of that, like, work with Cassian and also work at the library. But it's not really a smooth start for her. She is still very much suffering from, like, what happened in Akamath and Akawar. And, like, she's also still suffering from her father's death. And we know in her own perspective, like, how she feels about her father. She never really loved him. She actually despised him for most of her life. And yeah, anyways, so she basically does not want to train at all, and Cassian is at wit's end because he doesn't know what to do. He takes her to the Illyrian mountains, and obviously those Illyrian warriors are all disgustingly misogynistic and gross and disgusting, and they all need to die. And my girl Nesta just decides to sit her butt on a rock and not do anything because she obviously just doesn't want to.
Can we can I briefly interrupt just to say that I felt so much for Cassian in that moment when she's well aware that she's embarrassing him in front of people that want to embarrass him at any cost and want to prove him incompetent. And I felt so bad for him. I was like, oh my god, like, Nesta, please just do this for him. Like, he's looking like a fool just because of you. Oh.
And she's consciously doing it, though.
Yeah,
she knows.
She knows.
She knows.
And, like, that scene where he can see that she was about to reach out, but she stops herself. Like, she wanted to reach out, but...
Yeah. No, and then basically, we know the House of Wind has 10,000 steps, and that's the only way she'll get out of the house, if not for Cassian or Moore or Rhys or Azriel or whoever, decides to take her out of there. And she makes it her mission to go down those stairs, to go to a tavern to drink, because obviously she's not allowed to drink as well in the house. And we also find out that the house is enchanted, and also denies her demands for alcohol or basically any sort of vice for her. Oh, and she meets Emery in the shop in the Illyrian Mountains, and we remember her from Aquafast as the girl who she was the one that gave Cassian the present, right?
Yeah, in A Court of Silver Flames. Oh, I don't know.
No.
Was it the present, or he definitely goes to her shop?
He interacted with her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember when she appeared in this book, I was like, oh yeah, it's the girl from the novella.
Yeah.
Which, okay, this is a good question, actually.
Yes.
How do you feel in the initial stages of this book? I have 2 questions, actually. First one, how do you feel about Nesta in this first part? Because she's quite unlikable. I mean, and there's reasons for it, obviously, but you know, Sarah J. Maas doesn't shy away from making her very broken and unlikable in those early stages. And my second question is, when you started the book, so during that first sort of part where she's sort of reintroducing this world, did you feel like this book could stand alone or not? Discuss.
S, do you want to start, or?
So you're asking if this book can be read like as a standalone?
Yeah. Did you feel that way, or?
No.
No, I didn't feel that way either.
I feel like there was a lot mentioned that happened in Aqua War, where I was just like, wait a minute, I don't remember. So I had to go back and kind of look up certain things just to kind of refresh my memory. Like with the whole Eris thing, I completely forgot who he was. I forgot the whole Eris thing too. I had to look up his like fandom wiki, whatever, and like kind of refresh my memory. Things that happened with like the cauldron. So no, I don't think it's possible for this to be.
No, I agree with that. Actually, my mom is reading Akosif right now. Hey, Mom. And she's like asking all these questions. She's like, oh wait, what happened here again? Oh, I don't remember what happened here and here. And like, who's this Eris guy again? And so I honestly don't think it could be read as a standalone at all.
Yeah, I felt quite disoriented in the beginning just because it had been like 3 years since I had read the last book.
It's been a while.
I mean, I do feel like she did a good job of mentioning enough that I was like, oh yeah, but not going into too much details that then it felt like I was reading a summary of what happened in the last books.
Yes.
But that being said, I have read the last few books, so like I could remember what she meant. But if you're reading this and this is your first book in the series, I really don't think that it works.
No.
And so I don't know if they marketed this as like something you could read on its own, but I really don't think it works. So if you're listening to this, I mean, why would you be listening to this? This is going to be full of spoilers, so like maybe you shouldn't. But like if you were considering it, don't. I don't think it works. Second question was, how did you feel about Nesta in those early stages of the novel?
She was pretty nasty, yes. And she was awful to everyone around her. Feyre being one of them who got the brunt of her hatred. Obviously Cassian as well. Rhys, obviously, they don't have a good relationship at all. But like there were still moments where like you saw her kindness, you saw her goodness with Gwen, which is another person she met in the library, another priestess, and you see her kindness with trying to help Gwen, not get caught by her boss. And you see these like instances, these small little like embers of her like personality coming out and like her goodness coming out, and what makes Nesta come out. And it's like it kind of makes those awful scenes bearable because you know that she's suffering.
Well, we know. Like, we see those instances because we're in her head, but she's not showing it to anyone, really, at this point. Maybe besides Gwen. I felt incredibly protective of her in those early stages. I don't even know why. Because she's an asshole.
I loved her and I hated everyone that hated on her.
Yeah, I was so protective. Like, even with those scenes with Rhys and Farah, I was talking to a friend and she was like, those scenes with Rhys and Farah really make me hate Nesta even more. And I was like, I was the opposite. I hated Rhys and Farah in those scenes. Yeah. I hated them. I was like, how dare you be like this towards her? She's clearly broken and in need of love, and you're just being an asshole towards her, even though she's being an asshole to you, but like, how dare you? And
it's funny because like I get why, like obviously we get why Rhys and Feyre did it, is because they wanted her to get better and they wanted the best for her. I get it, but like honestly, like it would be like at 2 a.m. in the morning, right? And like I would just like be dropping my book on the sofa because my dad, for some reason, does not go to bed. And like I'm talking about me and not going to bed because I'm reading this book. Anyways, I dropped the book and I'm like, Dad, I just hate Rhys and I hate Feyre. And then like I just explained to him what's going on, and he's like, oh. Just like, thank you for pretending, but yeah.
But you know how brilliant that is? It makes so much sense though, because this is Nesta's perspective. So I was like, the only perspective we've ever had of Farah and Rhys was Farah's perspective. So we saw Rhys how she sees Rhys, and Rhys and Farah felt
a glorified version of Inner Circle.
They felt different here because we're seeing them through Nesta's eyes, and at that point in the story, Nesta is not very, she doesn't like them very much. So it makes sense that as the reader, you're like, shit, these two people are fucking awful.
No, and I think we also need to keep in mind though, Farah has always been an unreliable narrator. She's always been like, it's always in first
every
person,
narrator is really, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I think this book, Akosif, really cements that in when we realize Nesta's perspective is also very unbiased. Very biased. And, it's different. And, like, you see these characters that were glorified and, like, praised in the previous 3.5 books, and you see a different side of them, and you see them act differently because our narrator is not the same as the one we had in 3.5 books previous to this one. And yeah.
But also you have two people that can talk to each other through their minds. So, like, I kind of wonder how that would affect someone else's perspective of them, because obviously they're having those conversations back and forth, like, all the time. How isolating that must feel sometimes, because maybe Rhys isn't thinking what she thinks he's thinking, but she has no way of knowing that, if that makes sense. Whereas like with a smile that she thinks is like an evil smile might very well not be. It's just how she's interpreting it. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot could be lost in communication when you have, like, mind links involved and people not saying things out loud.
But I also think we need to, when we're reading this book, recognize that we're not seeing the romantic Rhys. We're not seeing the lovey-dovey, I will die for my mate Rhys. We're seeing the High Lord. That is who we are witnessing right now, because he's doing it to protect his court, his people, and his people is Cassian, his people is Feyre and Elaine for some reason, and Az and more, and everyone that she's basically hurt.
But also Rhys is like very okay with sacrificing pretty much anyone besides Feyre, and I was like, Rhys, okay. Anyway, what about you guys? What did you think of Nesta?
In this first section, I felt for her. I did catch on like little moments where she had a chance to kind of hurt Cassian, and she kind of like backed off. So I was like noting like those little moments in the first part, and it broke my heart when she went to visit Farah at their house, at their new house, and like there were portraits of everybody except for her. Like, like that really broke my heart.
It broke my heart.
Like, have a little drawing for her, something small, or I don't know.
Like a stick figure.
Like
anything.
Like,
right?
imagine how isolating that is. Like, she really feels like she's not a part of this, in part because she made herself not be a part of it, but also
Yeah.
It's different, like, wanting it and actually seeing that it's a thing. Like, you are not really a part of this family. Like,
it fucks. I feel like it fucks with your head more.
it does.
Right?
It does.
And it's, because she sees these people and, like, you know, Feyre has found a family that actually loves and appreciates her. And, like, I'm pretty sure Nesta sees it that way. And, like, I don't know. It was just heartbreaking to see. And
for years, Nesta had Elaine. And then to kind of see Elaine kind of switch sides and be a part of this other group, this other family.
Well, that's exactly as she saw it. That's what she saw, that Elaine literally chose a side and chose Feyre.
And, like, as a girl in a family of 3 girls, I can confirm that that is exactly how it is when you're 3 girls. Like, it's very real, the whole thing of, like, having one of your sisters being, like, the closest to you, and then, you know, years go by and lives change and things happen, and then you realize one day that the sister you were really close with is now really close with the other sister. And, like, I've been the Nesta in, like, this situation. Like, I've been the one sister because I'm the youngest. So, you know, I'm easily discarded.
I don't say that.
And, like, I so understood that. And I was like, Sarah J. Maas really understands family relationships, and, like, she loves to explore that in various ways. And, like, I love that she wasn't afraid of saying, like, yeah, these sisters are not gonna always be, you know, close and happy and, you know, the best friends, you know, because that's just not how it is. So
another instance that Nesta's really relatable is that she has, like, this care and this love in her, but she doesn't feel like she's deserving of it, or, like, she doesn't voice her affection for people at all. And it's like, we recognize that later on in this part where, like, she has to scurry, whatever the word
Scry,
is,
I think.
For the one of the, like, the mask and the dread trove, and, like, she just gets flashbacks of, like, when she had to do that for the first time in Akawar, and, like, she lost Elaine because of it. Like, she got kidnapped. Elaine got kidnapped, and she, like, feels that guilt, and she's scared. She doesn't want that to happen again, like, something like that to happen again. And it's just, like, she doesn't voice that to anyone. She literally just keeps it in, and we only know it because obviously we're reading it in her head. And it's just so heartbreaking because, like, she has those emotions inside her, but yet she, like, reacts in a different way, and it's so sad.
And we're so used to seeing this dynamic reversed. So, like, the man in the relationship is the one that really struggles showing his emotions and affection towards people. And then the woman is, like, the one that's, like, you know, it comes easily to her. Here, it's, like, the complete opposite, where Cassian is, like, the big teddy bear who, like, will show love and affection easily. And Nesta is the one that's really struggling with that. And you're right that that's something that's extremely relatable. Like, personally, that's me. Like, it's not easy for me to show affection towards people. Doesn't mean I don't love them. It's just, like, I struggle saying, like, I love you, you know, and just saying, like, thanks for being who you are. Like, that's really hard for me.
No, I get that. That's literally me, too. Why is it turning into, like, a therapy session?
Because this book is therapy, that's why. It just it really gets you thinking. This is also the part where Nesta decides that she will start, or she would like to have some of the priestesses train with her.
Yes.
And so she puts up the little sheet that says, like, mark your name here, whatever, and no one adds their name yet. And I have a quote, because when I read that, I was like, oof, okay. It says, Nesta says, why aren't they signing up? And Cassian says, is that what you're upset about? And she says, some of them have been here for hundreds of years and still haven't been able to come back from what they endured. So what hope do I have? I was like, because, like, she's doing all that. Like, she's doing that for them, but for herself most of all, I think. Like, the whole, I need to see these other women who have been hurt come back. Like,
far worse that she thinks.
Yeah, and I need them to see that they can get better, so that I can see that I can get better. And like, obviously for most of the story she thinks that somehow they are worth it, but she's not.
She's not.
And
that broke my heart. I'm like tearing up again, Marge. I can't. Like, for some reason, this book just hits me so hard. Because, like, she is deserving of that, that growth. And that she is worthy of love. And it just hurts.
She doesn't
because
see
I love
it.
her.
Yeah.
And we also didn't talk about the plot. The conflict.
That's right. Oops. So typical.
So basically... if y'all remember the human queens from Akawar, one had gone into the cauldron and came out a fae, but she also came out an old crone, basically, because Nesta had took something from the cauldron that it wasn't willing to give when she went into the cauldron.
Yeah, essentially what they wanted was eternal youth and beauty, which she didn't get.
Yes. No. So Cassian is tasked by Rhys to be a liaison between Eris, which is, the heir to the Autumn Court, and the Night Court, because we find out later on that his dad, Baron, is kind of working with Brylan, the queen. That's how you say her name?
Yeah, sure. I've never said her name out loud. So.
Me either.
Brialyn?
I don't know.
Anyways, the old lady
crone.
Queen.
Yeah.
And she's also working with Koshi, which we've met in the third book, right?
Did we? I wasn't sure about that. Oh yeah, no, we did.
We never met him, but we heard of him.
Yeah.
Vasa, he's the one that cursed Vasa to turn into a phoenix every time the sun rises. So we know that they're working on something, and we find out later on that they are trying to acquire the 3 pieces that make up the Dread Trove, which is basically made from the cauldron, and it gives you certain abilities. For example, there's a mask who makes you, which if you put it on, it makes you rise the dead and and basically fight or whatever you want it to do, it'll do it. And then there's the crown, which basically controls whoever is in that vicinity. What was the other one? Oh, the harp.
Yeah.
The harp plays with time and can make you
not
go back in time, go forward in time.
Yeah,
open
not just
portals
time,
or whatever.
but like
freeze time.
Dimensions. Also.
Yeah. It does a lot of shit.
Question.
Anyways,
which of the 3 would you want?
The harp.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'd want the harp because then I could go to any world and pick myself up a Lorcan or a Rhys or a Cassian.
Okay, because the harp includes fictional worlds, apparently. I wasn't aware of that.
You said dimensions. And I'd have to go to Prythian to get the harp anyway.
Sure. I feel like that there's a lot of holes in that plan, but I'll give it to you.
What about you, Les?
I think the mask. I really like the scene where she puts on the mask and she like kind of controlling like the dead and shit. Yeah.
The mask is scary though. What if it stays stuck on your face?
Well, then it stays stuck on my face and I control the dead. I don't know. I really love that scene.
Or it controls me.
I don't know. I feel like I'd say the harp too. I don't really want to control people. That's no fun. The mask scares me because I'd be too afraid that it would just get stuck and I'm just here like constantly rising the dead. And I'm like, I don't know. Okay, do you know what this
makes me think of? You obviously don't know because I don't think I've ever told the story. But basically, when I was in grade 8 or grade 9, obviously it was like the hype of Twilight, and I like wanted to be a vampire for Halloween. So
what did you do, Seth?
I decided that I was gonna go buy the fangs, like, you know, the fangs that you buy for Halloween. Mm-hmm. And these were like the good ones. They like, I spent $20 on this. I used all my allowance. I got them. Okay. Anyways, I come home from school and I'm like, you know what? No one's home, so I'm gonna put them on and like put the mold in and like pretend I'm a vampire. No one's home, right? So I'm like, I put them in and like they look so good. I still have these fangs to this day. Anyways, they look so good. I don't wear them anymore. And obviously,
I love how you had to specify that.
anyways, I let them set, right? So they're set. They're in my mouth. They look so good. They look real. They look perfect. Playing with them, you know, pretending I'm a vampire in my house. And then it's time to like take them off because I know my mom's gonna come home in a few minutes, right?
Yeah.
They're not coming out.
Did you glue them on or what?
No, it comes with like a paste and it molds to your own teeth, and like what makes it stay in your teeth is the mold because it's molded to your teeth. And once you take them out, like they should be able to just come out and like you can just like put them in all the time and like just it'll stay there.
I mean, you had Invisalign S. I had braces. Like it's the mold thingy that they put like to have the shape of your teeth. When they take it off, I don't know if you remember, it feels like all of your teeth are coming out.
Yeah.
It's so tight. So that's probably what that was.
Anyways, yeah, so the rest of the story, maybe not. Okay, I'll just tell you. Anyways, so it's not coming out.
Well.
Me being me, I panic. You know, I get emotional. I call my mom sobbing. And I'm like, Mom, they're not coming out. And she's laughing so hard. She's on the bus coming home. And like, anyways, long story short, the mask would give me those
anxiety.
feelings again. So I will never put on that mask. They
Yeah.
came out, by the way.
I mean, maybe they weren't coming off because your true form had been achieved. And so your body was like, no, they stay on.
Yeah. You know, I wouldn't feel bad about that if I wasn't sobbing like a baby.
Yeah. Anywho, back to the dread trove.
I got so sidetracked. Anyways, so Rhys and Cass go to meet Eris at the Spring Court, which we know is Tamlin's area. And we find out Tamlin has been in line form since like book 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so he's just like hanging out Aslan style and just like
waiting to die, honestly. I feel like the whole
the
hope of
disarray.
Prythian is just waiting for him to die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to Tamlin lovers out there. Honestly, I don't hate him. It's just he's there, and I have no feelings towards him.
Yeah, I don't have like I used to feel intense hatred for him. But now I kind of feel indifferent, and I don't sympathize, but I could see him and kind of feel a bit of pity because like you realize he's going through a lot mentally, and like we kind of never looked at it that way. But I still don't give a shit about him.
Yeah,
I still hate
him.
I
don't want a story for him, but I could see it. But I don't want it.
He just leaves me
Okay. Nesta continues training. And she's getting a bit stronger. She's actually enjoying herself a bit. After Cassian comes back from his meeting with Eris, he's feeling a bit down. Wait, we didn't say the first time that they did something.
The blowjob?
The hand
was
job?
That the first? No.
It was a hand
job.
job.
That was the second sexual experience. The first one.
He goes down on her.
No,
it's a hand job.
What?
The first one is when he throws her against the wall and they're like dry humping each other and he comes in his pants.
Oh, that's right. And then she makes fun of that, which
is great. I love that scene.
Cassian has. I don't know how he did it, because if someone was insulting me constantly the way that Nesta is, I would just cry and just disappear into the void. I would just stop existing. So,
but that
bless
scene
his
was
heart.
hot. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, of course, but you know,
Cassian, you know, in his pants, kind of killed me. Not gonna lie.
But the blowjob, in my opinion, was the better scene of the two. Like, oof,
obviously, blowjob under the table
was hot. I was like, okay, Miss Sarah J. Maas, I hear you. I see the difference between adult that isn't adult and adult that is adult. I mean, maybe it's just been a while since Aquawar.
No,
which I remember
this
the sex being graphic in that book, but not nearly as graphic as here. Like, she is naming shit. She's like, there's jizz coming out of places constantly, just oozing.
Yeah, she like took this smut to the next level.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the blowjob under the table, Az?
Oh, I loved it. I loved all the smut.
And I love Az. He's the worst chaperone ever.
I have a question regarding the mention of her thinking about the threesome.
Yeah, that was the threesome that was taken out.
Okay. Then why did she take out
was it though?
That one little scene where she's kind of imagining Asriel?
So how she explained it in a Instagram live that she did afterwards was that was the original threesome, and she took it out because it wasn't the story she wanted to tell, and B, she was aware that if she had that in the story, then there were emotional threads that she needed to weave in afterwards. And she didn't want to do that because she was like, these two characters already have too much going on between just the two of them, that because you can't just have a threesome and then never mention it again, and she was aware of that, so that's why she chose to take it out. So yeah, that was the scene.
Then she should have taken out her little imagining.
It was a little weird, but
it
was a little weird. But personally, as someone who, as you know, I do not like threesomes in my books at all.
Same.
I was actually okay with it because if you have Asriel and Cassian in one room with you, you have those thoughts, okay? Like, you do not have those thoughts, A.
I agree with that.
I was like, that's a good way of giving the people that wanted it just enough to know what it could have been and to let them imagine that, and then also the people that didn't want it to be canon for it to not be canon. Like, I feel like that was a nice balance between the two. But it felt a little weird. It did. Because, like, Asriel was the one fucking her. I was like,
yeah, I didn't like that.
I'm just saying, he was the one doing it and not Cassian. Cassian was just getting another blowjob.
So, see, for me, I love threesomes. Like, I don't mind them. So that kind of, like, threw me off. Like, you're going to tease that and not deliver? I don't know. It just kind of felt...
Yeah.
Don't tease me like that, please. You know?
I get that.
And I mean threesomes in my fiction.
Not in real life, but in fiction.
In my fiction.
That's TMI a little bit.
Oh god. No.
She had to clarify, okay?
I mean,
to make sure.
I just love that we're constantly, making sure it's clear that we're not freaks.
And I had to clarify that I don't play with my fangs anymore.
You sure, son?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, are you sure? I'm not convinced.
After this, I'm gonna put them in and be like, I'm a vampire.
Anywho.
Oh my gosh! And we find out in this part, Rhys and Feyre are pregnant.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Cute little moment.
How did you guys feel about that?
Like that. Big sigh.
What?
Why?
Big sigh? Why?
Because I hated them!
Oh.
But
it kind of justifies Rhys's mentality towards Nesta.
Does it?
Like a little smidgen.
No.
But I was excited for them. I was happy. I wanted to read certain scenes in their perspective, and we didn't get that. And I was kind of really sad about that.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed them, but that's one of my critiques of the book. It's too much Rhys and Feyre.
Really? I read a lot of reviews where they said it wasn't enough.
I knew when she said, oh, we're pregnant, and, I knew it was going to become such a huge part of the plot, and I was like, but this is about Nesta. I do not care about this baby, and, the whole, I don't care about Feyre's birth canal. All right? I do not care. It was such a... No, but I mean, you have to admit it was kind of a dumb plot point. she had sex while she had her wings on, therefore the baby has wings, and like the wings are not pliable enough to come through a normal birth canal. I was like,
I just don't know why C-sections weren't a thing.
Well, but also like, you're gonna tell me that little baby wings can't go through? Like, they're probably, I mean, a baby's head is like literally,
but like the wings are probably wide. Maybe it's gonna have a big wingspan. I don't know. Like,
but if a baby's head can literally be shaped into a cone at that point and then take a normal shape afterwards, because they're literally squishy as hell to, you know, make their way through, you're gonna tell me that the wings are not the same?
I don't know. I don't know the genetic makeup of Valyrian wings. I just think cesarean section, like cesarean, you know, that could have happened. I don't understand if you can like build back wings for Cassian after they've been broken into a million pieces. If you can like help Feyre like survive life or death. If you could like literally do every single thing, like this Madja, whatever the heck the healer's name is. If she can do all of that, but like you can't give Feyre a C-section, cut the baby out, and like give her the baby and like she survives. I don't understand the logic with all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I just wished it hadn't been about Rhys and Feyre as much as it was in those parts, because A, I didn't care, and B, I didn't care. So, and I just thought that if the ideas behind it had been solid and I was like, oh yeah, that's totally something I didn't think about that could happen, I'd be like, sure. But the whole thing with like, oh, she's a shapeshifter and like she had her wings when they conceived the baby, and like turns out the baby has wings, and like I was just like,
so really? Did you think it was a little random then?
Yeah.
Very convenient, I guess.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the baby, yes?
I mean, I liked it. I was excited to read about that. I mean, I didn't mind it. But I do understand how Marge says, like, it does seem kind of, is the word overshadow what Nesta was, right? What Nesta was going through. Yeah. And it kind of just made it a part of the plot.
Because it became about them.
I didn't feel that.
Because every time that there was something going on, it was like, oh, well, let's sacrifice Cassian and Nesta because Feyre and Rhys are pregnant, so they literally can't go anywhere anymore. And let's not talk about that dumbass fucking bargain that they've made. I was so mad.
Rhys and Feyre?
Yeah.
But I mean, do you expect differently? Do you actually expect him to be alive if she dies? They made that
bargain in Akko Fest, right? Yeah, they made it at the end.
I don't fucking remember that, but I was like, you dumbass love fools. How dumb are you? Why? You're putting everyone's lives at risk just because you're like, I'm not going without you. Like, that's a bargain that you make, like 500 years down the line when you're like, yeah, maybe we've lived a long life. Maybe, like, now is the time. Like, you know, we're not in times of turmoil and war times and stuff. So, like, let's be happy and, like, make this little bargain that's not going to affect anyone's lives besides our own. Yeah. No.
Okay. I liked it, but, like, as I said, like, the whole logistics of, like, the baby not being able to come out via C-section. But I did like their story and like their addition to Nesta's story in the sense where like the scenes that came out of certain aspects of the pregnancy, like I'm not going to obviously get into details with it now because it's later on in the book. I just felt like it did complement and push Nesta in a sort of like growth that I don't know if she would have reached if it wasn't for certain aspects of that pregnancy.
Okay, I'm gonna just specify, I'm not a Rhys and Feyre hater. I'm glad that they have this baby. I'm not against it. I like them. It's just, I feel like my feelings are clearly tainted by the fact that I felt so much towards Nesta and like wanted her to have her own time to shine and not...
Yes.
You know, for so much of her story to depend on the fact that Rhys and Feyre are unavailable at the moment. Like, I kind of wanted it to be, like, her thing and, like, her doing her own thing. But, you know, whatever. It's fine. At the end of the day, like I said, I enjoyed the book.
I do have a little something that kind of bugged me a little bit. But I don't remember if it was in this scene Or in the
we
second
just find
part?
out that she's pregnant. That's all we find out. And
Okay,
that they're
so
having a bat baby.
no, so is the second part where about the blades?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll discuss it on that part.
Before we switch over to the second part, can I just mention one of the most relatable moments of this entire book? Also the moment that literally had me laughing out loud. And it is the moment where Cassian asks Nesta, "What are you reading?" And she says, "It's a book about a book."
Yeah.
I literally was like, I put my book down and I was like, how relatable is this?
Yeah.
I literally
I said that
laughed
so many
so
times.
hard. I was like, that is me. When people ask me what I'm reading, I'm like, well, I mean, it's a book. Like, what you want me to say? That I'm reading about this big-ass blue alien? Like, no, I'm not gonna say that.
Or I'm reading about an alien with like a dick that separates into 4 pieces.
Like, no, the book is about a goddamn book. Leave me alone.
I just love Nesta and like I can relate to her on that level. Like she loves reading about smut and so do I.
Yeah. Very. Also, the house. The house
Also loves smut and I love it.
Oh, we're also told in this, I mean, this is like the very, very beginning of part 1, but we're kind of, it's sort of hinted at that Nesta has issues with taking a bath and fires.
Yes.
Which is
the
explored
crackling of the wood in
later
the fire.
on. Yeah, well, I mean, in this part at the beginning, we don't know that yet. It's kind of just like, we know she has like, she's uncomfortable near fires. So we can revisit.
No, she does. She does say it.
I mean, she
she
says so about the bath, but I don't think so the fire. That came later on. Like, the bath is essentially because of the cauldron and when she was, put into it and felt like she...
No, yeah, the bath, but Cassian picks up on her... Yeah, we know about it before she goes to the Lyrian Mountains and goes to Rhys's mom's house, but, like, Cassian picks up on her flinch when she, like, he sets the fire and, like, she's, in that house and she flinches when she hears the wood cracks.
Oh, I must have missed
and
that
then she,
because I knew it made her uncomfortable, but I don't think I knew
I
why.
believe, unless I'm wrong, I might be wrong, but I know he's the one that catches her flinch, but I don't remember if she had a monologue about her dad's death.
Anything else in this part? Any other notes?
Oh, in this one, she decides to practice her fighting in the library, and Cassian comes and like teaches her how to throw a punch properly, but he full well knows she knows how to throw a punch, and all the other priestesses are interested, but one name finally shows up on the paper.
Well, she does that after no one signs up on the sheet that she put up. So she was like, I'll do a public demonstration, show them that there's nothing to fear, because the thing with these priestesses is oftentimes, most of them, it's because they were attacked, violated, whatever, by a man. And so most of them are living in seclusion, away from society and anyone. So she knows that they're probably afraid of him. And so she does that to show them how he trains her and that there's no touching involved. If, or if there is, he always asks permission first. And then one name shows up, and it is
Gwen. I love Gwen.
How do you feel about Gwen?
I loved
her. Love her. She's funny. She's sweet. She's amazing. Love her.
Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe we should say also, like, how do you feel about Cassian? Like, I feel like we have not mentioned him.
The man. Like, who doesn't?
He's great. He is great, but I will say, I feel like I'm full of criticism. I swear to God, I love him. He's a great hero. But
he had a moment for me. One moment we'll get to later on.
I mean, no, for me it's more like I feel like Sarah J. Maas's heroes are usually more like they're more different from one another than okay, let me try to make sense. Rowan, silent, brooding type. Love him. Rhys is like the flashy, high lord that's like sassy but also sexy as hell, and like, he's very different from Rowan. So my one criticism is that having read Crescent City, Hunt and Cassian are essentially the same person.
Really?
Yeah, they're both like the jockey sort of like war, commander or whatever. I don't fucking know war things. Like they were both like, leading armies, and like they have like shoulder length black hair, and like they're funny, and but also like serious, and they're very, very similar in my opinion. So that's my one criticism. Like I love them both. I love Hunt, I love Cassian. It's just they blur a little bit in some ways, and that's my only criticism. But Nesta and Bryce are different enough that like their stories are different, but
I don't know. I didn't read Crescent City yet, so I can't really say. But
if you love Cassian, though, you'll probably love Hunt, so that's a good thing.
That's really good. So I was a part of her Indigo conversation for her live, and basically, I don't know if it was live actually. No, it was. So basically, she talked about Cassian, like the creation of Cassian, and like how she developed his character in this book, and like what she said was that she had a soft spot for like softies who look tough but actually are teddy bears, and she loved him since he walked onto this like on an Akamath, and she said that she made him the way that he is in this book because like Nesta, he's seen a lot, he's been through a lot, but he's still positive and kind towards everyone in life, and he was a character that Nesta could learn from and like see that his traumas didn't break him, and like they obviously did at that time, but he learned to overcome them. So like that's why she kind of had him that way, and like that jovial and that kind and patient, and Nesta was like the complete opposite of him because like he's been there but he's overcome it.
Yeah. Also, Hunt and Cassian are both bastards. I forgot that, but yeah, they're both.
Oh, okay.
They both don't know who their father is.
Okay.
But we'll find out. Hint, hint. Do you feel like Cassian's character development was mostly done in the previous books?
Yeah, because I think at this point, the one who's going through that change is Nesta.
Do you wish there had been a little bit more of him here, or were you fine with the amount that we got? Like, he was kind of just along for the ride, more so than like like the second main character of this book. I felt like.
I feel like it was fine. I didn't need any. I mean, we got the information like of his past and stuff, which is it works fine for me.
Yeah.
Like,
which is another reason why this is not a standalone.
Exactly. Yeah. Like S, I honestly felt the same way. I felt like his growth happened in the previous books, and it was very much Nesta's story, and Sarah J. Maas has like been certain, and like she made everyone know it's Nesta's journey. It's always been her journey, and honestly, I appreciate that, and I love that it's a heroine's journey. And Cassian was there, and I think it's like we should know, like we should also like read about books where yes, the romance is a focal point, but it's not the main focal point. And yeah, I loved how like Cassian was there to complement Nesta in ways, and yes, he did have his own journey in the book, but I liked the amount we got of him.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the same. I didn't feel like I needed more of him, but I just feel like it's important to note that most of his character development is done in the previous books. So, all right. Part 2, Blade.
Whew.
What happens in part 2?
Guys, we literally spoke in an hour and 3 minutes.
Well, this is going to be in 2 parts.
Spoiler, 2 parts.
Can confirm at this point, this is going to be a 2-parter.
Yeah.
So, part 2. What happens?
Okay, we start off with Gwen, who is coming into the training to learn how to fight and defend herself. And then we also end up back at the Illyrian Mountains, where we meet Emery again, and then we see her cousin trying to get her shop from her because apparently no woman can run a business with this backwards Illyrian thinking. And then Nesta tells him off, and Emery and her kind of form a bond, and they form a sort of friendship, and Nesta tries to convince Emery to join her in training, like as they've gotten closer. And we also find out that Emery's own father had clipped her wings so she would not be able to fly.
I have a question about that before you move on. So Emery's wings, she says they're clipped, but she still has them. So I was really confused because in my head, clipped means like they're gone, but she still has wings. So
I think it means like probably like the joints or like I don't know, the muscles that you need to fly. Maybe they've been cut off.
So maybe not
or,
cut
like, cut
all the way, but like cut enough that she wouldn't be able to heal them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
I know, it's so sad. Anyways, continuing on with Eris and everything that's going on with the plot, Cassian explains to Eris what the dead trove is and how Koshi and Brylan are also after it. And obviously Eris is an asshole again and tells him off, and like, you know, we know that he's feeling sad and like hurt by the words that, you know, that he's a bastard and like he's not going to be anything better than that. And this is where the blowjob happens, man.
Yeah, my first note in part 2 is blowjob.
I have a sticky that says blowjob
with like emojis of like sweating.
Yeah, and I'm so mad. Why did I think it happened in part 1?
No,
anyways,
part 2.
Anyways, the blowjob happened. Already talked about it. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
But basically Nesta she's been wanting to, you know, pleasure him in ways. Nesta knows he's a good man and doesn't deserve to feel unworthy. So instead of telling him this, because she has trouble using her words to express her emotions and like positive things about other people, she decides to you know, like give him the blowjob to express what she feels inside.
Yeah. As one does.
Yeah.
As we would all do if we were in the presence of Cassian, to be honest.
And can we just say, apparently Cassian has a big strong.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say he has the biggest wings, but he doesn't. That's Az. He had the smallest ones. I mean, they all have a considerable length, is what Sarah J. Maas loves to say.
No, but apparently he's massive.
I mean, they're all massive, Saf.
No, but apparently Cassian is like, he sounds abnormally big. So we're talking about dicks here. We're not talking about wingspans. No code words here.
Imagine Azriel then. Can we take a moment of silence, please, to worship Azriel's dingalong? Because that shit's gonna be delicious when we get there.
What is that? March? His what?
His dingalong?
What is that?
I invented that.
I say, I've heard dingaling.
Listen, I just invented that. I made up a word.
Oh, okay. Well, I've heard dingaling. Anyways, yeah, he must have. I need a reference. I need to know the sizes.
Well,
like what?
Saf, she said that the length of the wings is proportionate to the length of the dingaling, and Az has the longest wings. Then it's Rhys. Then it's Cassian. So if you think that Cassian is like huge, well, Rhys was bigger, and Az will be bigger.
Are you sure she said specifically that Cassian has the smallest wingspan? Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure that's a line in Akamath, like just when Farah is like, you know, noticing things.
Because for some reason, I honestly think
Let me investigate.
Goes to Azriel, then Cassian, then Rhys. For some reason, I just like that's how I feel like it goes. It could be because Sarah J. Maas was still trying to write Aquamath in a very young adult / new adult world, so she didn't want to talk about how big his dingaling was. But like that's how I'm reading it.
What is the point of this conversation?
I have no idea.
I've lost the point. I feel like it's just to say that Cassian is well endowed. In fact, maybe over endowed. Poor Nesta might have felt a little pains afterwards.
I mean,
but she enjoyed them, you know?
She was excited.
Yeah.
She was excited for it to be that big.
She does enjoy some pain. They both do, so.
Oh, yes. They like it rough.
I appreciate it. Anyways, moving on from this conversation that had no point.
It had no point, but I enjoyed it. Cassian goes to Emery, and he gives her a gift from Nesta, which is like teas and spices, and like it kind of was a bribe because Nesta really wanted her to join in the training. But
the meaning behind it is like what it meant to Emery in the end was good.
Yeah, for sure.
Two.
Because, like, obviously Nesta had gone there and Emery had given her a meal, and Nesta saw that she didn't really have teas or spices to, you know, basically cook or do anything.
I meant, like, the fact that Emery was like, oh, it reminded me that there's a world out there.
Oh, yes.
Because that you know,
too.
the spices are not coming from Illyria or whatever it's called. So she was like, thank you for reminding me that, like, you know, this is not the only place where I can be. They became friends because of romance novels, which I was like, this is, again, too relatable.
Yeah.
That's how we became friends.
I know.
And that's why, honestly, this is another reason why this book hit me so hard. It was like, 2 of my greatest friends became my friends because of books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit. Like, now I'm crying because this reminds me of us.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the scene where she's having a dream and, like, her power, her flame comes out?
Is that in this part?
But that's in this part. But before that happens, I just wanted to talk about Emery decides to come to training, and who brings her is Rhys.
Yeah.
And Rhys and Cassian are talking in their heads about Nesta's change, and he's like, Rhys sees, like, you know, she's being proactive, and like she's bringing all of these priestesses, and like actually it's just right now it's just Gwen and Emery. But then like Rhys is being bitter and like recognizes her change, but still doesn't want to believe in her positive change.
Fucking
and like he's being an
Rhys.
asshole. And then Cassian was like, bitch, stop, okay?
You know what?
Like, chillax.
You know what? Rhys deserved his role as an Uber driver in this book. All right? That's all he did. Literally just winnowing people in and out. And I was like, you know what? You goddamn deserve this job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's so important, those scenes of training, and especially those early stages where it's just Emery and Gwyn, because Nesta, you know, in her mind, comments on the fact that like her whole family and even the town, they see her for her trauma, for what happened to her.
Yeah.
They see her as like this demon girl that came out of the cauldron. And they're unable to see past that. And she comments on the fact that with Emery and Gwyn, because they don't know her story yet, in part because she's hiding it, but she's hiding it, A, because she thinks that once she tells them, they won't want anything to do with her, but also because it allows them to only see her for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so important, that, like, they are the 2 people, maybe with Cassian, who are actually seeing her for her and accepting her as like just a person and not the girl that came out of the cauldron and took something from it. So that was really touching.
Yeah, because like she has lived with, I think it's over a year now at this point, or close to a year, where all she's ever felt was like she thinks she's unwelcome, and like everyone sees her as undeserving and ungrateful of like the life she
and
has
like a
now.
failure.
And, like you said.
Yeah.
And like you said, she has like a new book has opened basically, and she can write her own story, and like she's found people with similar interests and like kind of similar journeys in the sense where like they've been through things, they have trauma, but Nesta's still like keeping away from that side because she herself believes she's undeserving of like any goodness in her life. I love seeing Nesta with new people because you actually see who she is as a person.
And she needed someone besides her sisters. She needed to form a friendship and
outside of the family unit. Like she needed friends of her own. Plus, like when she first meets Gwen, she tries to be a little like snappy with her, and Gwen is just like, okay.
Yeah.
Which I just love.
I loved their first meeting. I mean, it happened in part 1, but I think Gwen and her, like, I don't know. I loved Gwen from the moment we first met her.
And like Gwen, like her, I don't know if maybe this is too early to talk about. Maybe not like the whole story of Gwen, but I believe we know by this point that the whole reason why she put her name on the list is because she said like my sister would have put her name there. So I put my name there, and I was like, oh, Gwen.
Yeah.
And then we get the first sex scene.
Yes.
In this part.
But that doesn't happen yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Nesta tries to scry find the mask. She tries to find the mask, but was unsuccessful. And she's literally locked in the mask. No, is she yet? I don't remember. No, she's not. This is her by herself, and she couldn't find the mask. And then it brings back her nightmares, and she's literally like silver flames are everywhere. This is a nightmare you're talking about, S.
Yeah.
And Rhys literally like comes flying in, trying to hold her down because like this girl's going like insane, and she's reliving her traumas. And then Rhys like he finally like gets her to calm down and knocks her out, and like he is rocked, he is shook, he was scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel about that dream?
S.
I don't know. I really like that scene. So they kept, for some reason, like, you know how they kept building up, like, what was her power? Like, what was she? And then Rhys, Azra asked him, like, what is her power? And he mentions that it's death, pure death.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Like, what does that mean? Because it's not accurate.
Right? It isn't.
It is not accurate. And thank God. I mean, not thank God. It'd be fine if she was just the queen of death. I wouldn't mind. But, you know, it's not actually accurate. Because we learn later on that there's more to it. So
Or is it because they don't know what her power is, so they assume that it's death because they haven't seen anything like it?
Probably because that's just what he sees in that moment, because obviously the power is manifesting in a dark manner because of the scrying, I guess.
Yeah. And also, when he looked inside Nesta, he saw her trauma. He literally saw death and coldness and emptiness.
It was consuming her at that point, so...
Yeah.
Or maybe that's what she wanted. No? She wanted death for herself, you don't think?
Maybe.
Because of what she went through? Or maybe she deserved...
Maybe. Like, maybe what he thought was, like, death was really just how she feels, you know? Like, maybe it wasn't even the power itself, just her being consumed by what she was feeling, you know, about herself and about what happened. And yeah, maybe that's what he saw.
Yeah.
I love that scene though, because by that point in the book, I remember telling myself she needs a moment of complete vulnerability where the characters who are not on board with her yet see her like that. I don't know why I felt that way, but I was like, I need them to see her at a low point to understand where she's at mentally, because or else they will never believe it. So I was like, thank God for that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm happy it was Rhys, because he's the one that was not supporting of her and was the most hateful towards her, basically. And I like that he was one that saw inside her and saw what she was living through day to day. I thought that was really important.
Plus, it was kind of interesting how, so she was battling with this, like, fire. And he was trying to, like, smother it with his, like, night power. And in her dream, that was scaring her even more, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only thing that brought her back was Cassian.
Yeah. But she was trying to overpower his power with her fire because she was scared of the darkness because of the cauldron. So
because of the cauldron, exactly. And it was, it's just like, it's so sad. Like, obviously Rhys probably thought he was trying to help and like trying to help her, but that wasn't what brought her back. It made her more afraid. It was Cassian's voice that brought her back. I love their bond.
So the first sex scene. No, still not.
No, it's not the sex scene, man. Relax.
I'm excited to get to it, okay?
We'll get to it. Okay, we get to the part where I got the most angry.
Ooh.
And for Rhys and Feyre. We find out that Feyre's womb is unable to deliver the baby since it's not fit for the Illyrian baby. So we already talked about it, basically.
Yeah.
But what got me really angry, and I don't know if you girls will agree with me on this, Rhys decided to not tell Feyre about her life being in danger and also the baby's life being in danger. All he told the healer to say was that there might be some complications and, you know, you might have to take it easy. But everyone else knew about Feyre's imminent death. Including Nesta, and I was livid. livid.
Yeah, that made me so mad because I've been there. You know, like, I have been the child who her parents decided not to tell her something because they didn't want it to affect her or scare her or whatever.
Yeah.
I've been that child. I mean, obviously Farrah's not a child, but like, I've had those feelings of like feeling like you were betrayed by the people that you love, and that they thought you too young or too dumb or too whatever, unable to accept what was going on type thing. I was so mad. Like, it took me right back to those moments, and I was like, how dare you take that decision away from her? Like, this is her fucking body. Yeah. And you are not telling her the goddamn truth about her own goddamn body.
I was so angry.
Like, that's one step further, because it's not just like, oh, this one piece of information that's unrelated to her, but you just don't want to tell her because whatever. No, this is actually her. Her
it's her body, her baby. It should be her decision ultimately. And I was at this point. I don't think, obviously, I think you unmuted me at this point on Twitter.
You say that like we had a feud.
Yeah, we fought so
Seth
hard.
And I had a huge fight in the middle of this book. I muted her on Twitter.
Anyways, so
wait, you can't just say that without context. Context is
okay, fine.
She was tweeting out spoilers
because I read Akasif before her and before S, so she decided to mute me because for some reason Twitter was being a bitch and was not
muted words or blocked words. Don't.
I muted both of you guys because I saw the hashtag, and I'm like, I muted a lot of people on Twitter.
I love that she didn't tell us. She just did it.
Fun fact, I only unmuted you today, Seth, because I had completely forgotten. And then I went on our Romancing the Monsters podcast. Like, I switched over to that to post, and I saw a tweet of yours on the timeline, and I was like, wait, I haven't seen Seth on my timeline for ages. And I was like, oh my god, I haven't unmuted her.
All right.
So you're officially unmuted. Don't worry.
Okay.
That's funny.
Wow, S probably still has both of us still muted.
No, I have you guys. I unmuted you guys like a week ago, I think.
Yeah. Anyways, back to my tweeting. I was angry. I was like rant tweeting. Okay, at this point, I had to put my book down and I had to like discuss with myself. What I like, what I was feeling. And like, I honestly, for a second, I was like, what separates Rhys from Tamlin at this point?
You went there. Damn.
I mean, I can agree that I had those thoughts too in certain places.
He lied to her. He manipulated her. He also kept information from her.
He also like bubbled her.
Yes.
Which I had issues with.
That brings me back to like grade 6 dances, bubbling. Anyways.
But like,
he put her in a bubble.
Like, I get it. It was to like hide her scent and like make sure she wouldn't be hurt or whatever. But like,
you meant literally. I meant figuratively.
Like, Cassian could even hug her
and kiss her, and like apparently that's what they love to do. Like, kiss her forehead and her cheek. Like Asriel, I thought that was so sweet. Asriel and Cass, they love touching Feyre.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe less so Asriel. Like, he's not that touchy-feely, but like Cassian,
for
sure, he's a teddy bear. Like, he just, how many times in this book does he go in for a hug or a kiss and goes, oh, I forgot about the shield?
Yeah.
Like, how sad is that?
Right? And it kind of like put a very bitter taste in my mouth because I loved Rhys and I loved what he stood for in like the first 3.5 books, and like I had to accept that we were reading Rhys and Feyre in Nesta's perspective and we're seeing it through Cassian's eyes as well. And I don't know, I just like, it kind of made them more human to me. It made Rhys a bit more human to me, even though they're not human, because like he made a mistake obviously, and I just thought it was interesting. But it wasn't the first time Rhys has kept anything from Feyre. Like, he literally kept a mating bond from Feyre in book 2. He knew they were mates and never told her.
Though, but she was mad about that too. Which, in this book, this is arguably a much bigger offense. And she didn't seem that mad about it, though one could argue that we just don't see the scene. But I mean, okay, this is kind of later on, but like, I was fully on board with Nesta when she said what was happening.
Blurted it out. Yeah.
I was as well, but her intentions
You had
weren't.
it coming. You had it coming.
No, yeah, no, for sure. But her intentions weren't good, and I think we need to recognize that the reasons for her uttering, you know, that secret that she swore she was never gonna say, weren't for the right reasons. She just wanted to hurt Feyre as much as she could in that moment because she was hurting.
Yeah. Of course.
But Feyre needed to know, and this is my one gripe with this book is I wanted that scene of her confronting Rhys in their perspective, because hearing from from Feyre, in Cass's mind, all she literally says is, yeah, I'm fuming mad at all of you, including Rhys, and we had a discussion about it. I wanted to see that discussion because I felt like Rhys needed to be put in his place, and Feyre would have done that, and I fully know Feyre would have done that because she's done it so many times in the other books.
If anything, go Feyre for being so understandable throughout this entire book. Like, yeah. You know, Nesta is being a bitch. She's like, okay. Rhys is being, you know, a territorial, overprotective asshole. And she's like, okay. Like, you know, bless her heart for being so accepting of everyone.
Yeah. No, but it's just like, it gets me really angry. Like, for some reason, it's a trope in romance books and in shows and in movies and things like that. Like, you know, omitting, like, you know, certain facts about one's pregnancy so the other partner doesn't get angry. And I'm like, but why is this a trope? I don't understand why this is something that is, like, they think people want to see. Like, and I was really disappointed in Rhys when he...
But also, maybe because in our world, there's already so much taboo around pregnancy and so many things that pregnant women are not told. You know... And, you know, there's this whole thing of, like, they need to advocate for themselves. They have to have this, like, list of things that they want because or else, like, you know, doctors might just do something else instead and, like, you know, ignore their, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a very sensitive subject as it is in our world. That maybe it's also why it's affecting us a little bit more because it's like, she should know these things because it's her life. I mean, I get
it's her life on the line,
and her baby's life.
Like, I get Rhys's side of things. I understand that he wanted to protect her and, like, wanted her to have a peaceful pregnancy while trying to find a way to save her because he didn't want to accept any other option. He knew, like, he would find a way to save Feyre, and he just wanted her to enjoy her pregnancy. But I honestly, at that point, I was angry.
Plus, there was no real point to it because once she knew, she was kind of chill about it. She was like...
Yeah, she's like... Yeah, she didn't want her baby to feel that anger and frustration and nervousness and anxiety.
Yeah. Which is, you know, what a mom does.
Which is why he should have told her in the first place.
Yeah.
How did you feel, about all of that?
Sorry, I just ranted. I'm so sorry. No, I'll stop talking.
It's fine. No, I agree with you girls. He should have told her. She should have had knowledge of what was going on. I mean, I would have been pissed. You know, but I also get, like, fast forward, like, to, like, the next part where I don't fault Nesta for kind of, you know, throwing it out there. Like, when you're angry and you have people are keeping things from you and you're trying to do better and be better and no one is acknowledging that change in Nesta, like, I get her frustration of blurting that out, you know? So I don't fault her for it.
So, first sex scene? Are we there?
Not yet, man. Chill, relax, Marge. I needed to talk about the mask.
Yeah.
Anyways, when Nesta finds out about Feyre possibly dying in childbirth, the idea of Feyre dying obviously hits her and she's sad about it. She decides to have the inner circle be there as she scries for the mask. She has a moment where her power overtakes her and she literally becomes her power. And Cassian decides to make out with Nesta hardcore to bring her back. And that was pretty hot. I was just reading that scene and I was imagining the whole room just watching her and him, you know, getting it on basically.
Well, because in that scene, I believe it's Rhys but I think it's Rhys who says, How did you do that? And by that point, I was like, okay, is this because of the mating bond? But I think it was extremely confused because I was like, has the mating bond snapped into place by that point and they're just both ignoring it? Or are they just assuming that they're mates but kind of ignoring it at the same time, but the bond hasn't actually snapped into place? I was very confused. And then there were like little moments here and there that had me question, like, are they mates? Is this already a thing? Or
are we talking about the scene like as a whole with the whole book? Like, so we know they're
by
mates,
this point
basically.
by this point, because the first sex scene is incoming and I was even more confused by that point. So what did you think at that point? Like,
I always thought they were mates. Like, since their first scene and, like, the second book and the extra bonus scene, I thought they were mates since then, but because she was human, it obviously didn't kick in, and I think once she became Fae, I think it did kick in, but they were just ignoring it. And, like, because, like, even in this book...
You think it snapped into place in Akawar?
Yeah, or even, like, at the end of maybe not the end of Akamath. No, I think it did. In the end of Akamath, I honestly think it kicked in when, like, she went into the cauldron and he's, like, screaming despite him, like, not having wings at this point. Like, I think they knew they were mates, but they just continued to ignore it. Because this book even had instances, like, in the beginning, like, he was the one that was able to bring her back from her, like, dream, her nightmare. He's the one that would get her, like, get her thinking and, like, get her to, like, show some signs of life, basically.
We can put a pin in that conversation and revisit it when we're done talking about the book. Okay, and we can talk about the mating bond as a whole throughout the whole book then.
Fine.
Okay. So.
Not sex yet, Marge.
Relax. We're almost there, though.
How did you feel about going to the swamp bog area, going to find the mask? Because that's where Nesta finds out the mask is somewhere in that area. How did you feel about the overall scene of that? Basically, she gets abducted by a Kelpie and pulled into the water.
Well, she's told to stay in a tree because Cassian and Azriel are off fighting Eris's soldiers that got lost, that went poof all of a sudden. And she's told to stay in the tree, but then she gets worried because it's been a while, which, again, kind of relates to the mate conversation, because later on Cassian is like, we were only gone for like 20 minutes, why were you so... In his mind, he doesn't tell her that, but he's like, why was she so worried? Because... He's her mate, and she was worried. Anyway.
Well, you don't think maybe it snapped for him and like how it snapped for him at one point and then...
Not in this book, though. I'm still confused. We can come back to it, because I feel like there are upcoming scenes that, add to that. Anyway. So she doesn't stay in the tree because she's like, I gotta find them. Maybe they're in trouble. And then instead she tries to cross this like river. And there's this Kelpie that comes out of it and grabs her and drags her in and tries to rape her. It's this whole thing. It
was really disturbing.
And then she finds the mask, puts it on, raises the dead that are left in the river from the Kelpie. Kills the Kelpie, comes out of it. What did you think?
Oh, no, she didn't just come out of that river. She, like, rose out of that water and that black water. And, like, Azriel and Cassian are stressing because they can't find her. Cassian is more traumatized with the idea of not finding Nesta. Then they stop, and then they see Nesta rising from the water with the mask on her face. Her eyes are basically, like,
it's
silver
basically
flames
not
at this
her.
point. And they kneel
in
front of her. In front of her power.
It's the being that's inside of her. Because she doesn't really remember it. Sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think this is one of your faves.
Yeah.
Right?
This scene was, for me, it was badass. Just the way she rose and she was wearing the mask and she commanded, like, the dead and all those creatures. It was a badass scene.
The Kelpie was disgusting.
Then he kept sticking his tongue. I kept thinking of that.
He literally kept, like... tonguing her to like make her breathe underwater, but then he was also planning on raping her,
And then
and he
making
was
her
like
his bride or
clawing at
something like
her, and he was clawing at like his teeth were like
His teeth were sharp AF.
they were
Yeah.
like shredding her mouth. It was ugh.
It kind of reminded me of Venom, like a Venom type of creature type of thing with a
Oh,
big
yeah.
mouth and tongue.
Oh yeah, but like Venom is hot.
Yeah, I was gonna
A
say Venom is
non-sexy
hot.
Venom.
Like Kelpie isn't.
But and I guess in this scene, because of what he's doing, it's also reminding her of that one guy from the village that tried to have his way with her because she essentially called off their engagement, and he was like, but I'm gonna get what I wanted from you anyway. And it didn't go too far. It went far enough to leave scars though. But so as he's doing that, like this monster beast thing, she's also like struggling with that memory, and essentially she kind of gives up when she's in the water. She's like, I'm going, because she's not defending herself for a little while.
But then she decides to call on her powers.
Does she call on her power, or does the power call to her and force her to do something?
I think she tried to call on her powers, because I remember she said, never again let that happen to me. And she tried to call her powers, but what happened was the mask came to her instead. She emerges, and they go to the Court of Nightmares.
Yeah.
Because they've taken 1 or 2 soldiers that were under Bryalen's control under the crown, and they try to question him. Rhys is there, obviously. And the mask is there. It's protected. Well, it's warded by Rhys, but for some reason, Nesta can go and basically go to the mask despite all the wards that Rhys had built around it. Anyways, things happen. She decides to, stay away from the mask because she doesn't like that power. That power really scared her. And she goes to take a bath. And Marge, take it away. That's what you've been waiting for.
So, essentially, they have sex, but, ladies and gents, they don't have regular sex. They have rough-ass sex. Doggy style, on the bed, and this is where, like, fluids are oozing out of place. Cassian is like, I love seeing my body juices running out of you.
Cassian is one kinky mother effer.
I mean, not even kinky. He was literally just so proud.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's a kink. Some people, like to see that.
Sure. Yeah.
This is a scene where he tells her to grab the headboard, right?
I think it's afterwards.
Oh.
I mean, they have sex like a million times that night. So, yeah. Well, essentially, Nesta is really into rough play, and thankfully Cassian is too. And even, this is great for me.
It was so good.
Great
Their
for
first
me.
sex scene was...
It was very hot. I was like, Miss Sarah J. Maas, you've been holding out on us before.
Exactly my words.
There were words in there that I was like, you have never used those words before.
And I'm grateful she used it for Nessie.
Yeah.
Loved it. How did you feel about their first sex scene, Ness?
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm reading it right now.
Oh.
I'm reading it. I love the quote where he says, I've made a mess of you. And she buried her face in the blanket. I like it.
Yeah.
Me too.
And then afterwards, she's like, all right, well, you did what you had to do, so you can go now.
Bye.
Because obviously they are not at the point where emotions are involved, or at least they tell themselves they're not involved. And so Cassian leaves.
Well, I mean, it's because she kept saying this is just sex.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, before he gets hurt, he decides to take it upon himself to leave. Before she can say, get gone, basically.
Yeah. And this kickstarts a lot of sex. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Maybe too much. We can discuss that. But it
I
for
don't think
sure.
there's too much.
I think there
There's
was a
no
little bit
such
too
thing.
much.
No, March, take it back.
But
Take it back.
can I just say, I'm usually the first one who's like, this sex is too vanilla in this book. Like, why is no one ever having exciting sex? And this book made me go, I have never wanted two people to make love, sweet, loving, more in my life. They did. But like for a while, I was like, "Oh my god, can you guys just connect on an emotional level? I need you to do sweet
I don't think
loving."
it was possible for that yet.
And so when it happened, I was like, "Oh my god, thank God, thank God."
But I think what Sarah J. Maas like was
No, it's not a criticism.
basically
It's not a
implying-
criticism.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is, when Sarah J. Maas was talking about how like Nesta uses sex as a way to communicate, I think with the whole blowjob scene, I think that's what all the sex scenes were basically doing. It was her way to connect, and obviously, like that's the only way she knew how. Her first time was basically, you know, during her depression and like everything that was going on.
But it was very also like emotional less and just release driven, like they just like, sure, it's a way of communicating and like it's a step forward for her and like she's only with him, whereas before she was just using strangers whose names she couldn't even remember. And like in some cases she didn't even like it, like it was really just so that it would you know, try to tame, like, it was like to tame her powers in a way.
Yeah. And it was like the only thing that could calm her down or like stop the memories.
Those scenes are well written in the sense that you can feel that they're both holding back in that sense.
Yeah,
like on an emotional level, they're both holding themselves back from actually connecting with each other. And that's what, and I noticed that. So that's why I was like, oh my God, I just need you to make love. Please. Like, I need you to form that connection, to let yourselves go and like admit to yourselves that you love each other. And they did. And I was like, oh my God. Thank God.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I could see that. Yeah. Their sex was really hot though. Yeah. On that note, this is when Emery, Gwen, and Nesta started meditating and doing something called mind stilling, which is something that the Valkyrie, which were female were they Illyrian warriors? Did they have wings?
I don't.
Or they were just known as like Valkyrie
they're just
warriors.
Normal Fae, high Fae warriors.
Yeah. So Nesta and Emery and Gwen start to train their mind, and also they kind of like, I guess, garner an interest to these Valkyrie warriors, this female set of fighters, and yeah, they just kind of want to try that out because they've all been through a lot, and mind stilling apparently helps with that, and
it's kind of
they
meditation.
do it, and their minds become calmer.
Yeah. How did you feel about the whole Valkyrie thing?
I loved it.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
It was amazing.
How they I don't know, because I'm picturing Valkyries, like, since we're reading the other series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was interesting, you know, to see I guess like a different side of Valkyries. Because you say Valkyries and I think of like
Immortals After Death.
Yeah, you know. So
I did too. I'm not gonna lie. It was the first time I was reading about Valkyries, so I was like, oh, I mean, okay.
But in a sense, it's kind of the same thing. Because like basically I think the myth of this Valkyrie literally comes from like Odin and Freya and like their band of female warriors that ride on Pegasus, and like they ride into battle on like flying horses basically, and I'm hoping by like maybe book 2 we get them, Helion just gives them Pegasi. Whatever the plural is for that word.
You think he would part with any of them? He seems really into his Pegasi.
I'm sorry, but Valkyrie warriors need their steed. They need their flying horses.
Fine. Did you feel weird that it was about the fact that it was like a term that we like that's not unique to this world, if that makes sense. Like that she didn't invent a name for these warriors. No.
I thought it fit, because even Illyrian isn't necessarily a word she's created.
No,
I've heard the word before. Let me search it up. Well, it's a group of people. It's also a place in the Balkan Peninsula.
Oh, true.
And it's we're a group of Indo-Europeans who inhabited the Western Balkan Peninsula. I remember hearing that word before to describe a group of people. So
this is the moment in the book where I was like, I have been an Elaine and Asriel shipper before.
Wait, already? Like, now you're going to talk about this?
Well, I mean, this is when I started, thinking that maybe I'm actually a Gwyn Asriel shipper. This is when the seed got planted into my mind, and I was like, So Asriel is the guy that, retrieved her from this horrible murder place. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And literally...
thoughts were being thunk.
Literally, the scene that had me go, was when she keeps looking at him, like the first time he comes to training, she keeps looking at him, and then he just smiles at her, and I was like, I ship it.
Girl,
just like that.
And wasn't she sassy with him too? Like there was like a little sass that she gave him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was this part, but
how did you feel about Gwyn and Asriel? I
wouldn't mind.
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which shipper are you? Are you an Illyrial shipper, or are you like an Aleutian shipper?
She's Aleutian.
Aleutian, yeah. I love
okay,
Aleutian.
so then you're fine. For me, when I read that scene too, I was intrigued, but I kind of was an Elaine and Asriel shipper going into this book.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I used to flip-flop between Aleutian and, Elaine and Asriel. And this book kind of might have cemented me as a Aswin shipper.
Yeah, I'm definitely Gwyn and Asriel. We can talk about the bonus scene at the end in the next episode. But just at this point, that's when I started thinking, okay, Gwyn and Az might be a thing.
Yeah.
And we could talk about Lucian and Elaine later on. I do have thoughts about that.
I do too.
So.
And I have a theory about Elaine that I need to talk about.
Ooh.
Anyways, continuing on. Let's push through part 2. Now we get to the scene that you that you wanted to talk about with the blades, where she went to the blacksmith with Cassian because he believes it's time for her to learn about weapons, and then she decides to work on weapons and learn how to forge them with the blacksmith. And what did she do, S?
She created weapons with her power, basically, right?
Yeah,
like
her
a
new dread trove.
Yeah. So my issue with that, you know how the blacksmith, he brought over the blades and took them to Rhysand, and they're all discussing the blades without Nesta there. And Amren,
again.
Yeah. So Amren tells Rhysand, with these 3 blades, you could make yourself High King. And they're kind of pushing that, on him. And I didn't like it because Nesta made those blades. It's with her power. So why are they pushing that on Rhysand so he can take over and become that bothered me a lot.
But also, why are they pushing for that? It's so out of character for Rhys. It's so out of the values of their court.
Yeah.
So he never wanted to be High King.
Exactly,
he even,
but
said,
all of them are pushing for it. Like Cassian and Asriel, they're all like, yeah, why don't you? And it's like, do you not know the men? Like, I'm like, do you not know him? That's so out of character for him. He would never do that. He never wanted it. Like, what?
I don't want it. If Sarah J. Maas does that, I'd kind of be really disappointed because it doesn't fit his character, and especially he talked about one High King, or Cassian does, in the past, and it just didn't seem like something that Rhys would ever want to do. And I didn't like that Amren kept pushing it and pushing it.
Plus it's stressful enough just being High Lord of one court. You want to be High Lord of all of Prythian? Are you sure about that? No. Yeah, that was a weird moment for Amren for sure. I was just like, I mean,
she had a lot of weird moments in this book.
It made sense for her character. Amren has always been that way. Like Amren gonna Amren. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's she's kind of evil, quote unquote evil at her core. But, you know, she fights against it, which is kind of where her fight with Nesta started off, because she was like, I know that you're better than this, but you're not allowing yourself to be.
But I think
it was
with
a weird
Amren,
moment.
like, she's not human and she's not Fae.
Yeah.
So she thinks of things a bit differently and like, looks at things differently as well. But I really did not like her in this book.
And so they choose to hide it from her, or like tell her when the time is right ish.
No, they vote to, but Cassian, Azriel vote for her to find out. And then Rhys.
In the end, the vote is in her favor, but Cassian chooses to
because
wait.
Feyre believes that her sister deserves to know.
So
I wish
she finds out.
I'm sorry, listeners can see your face right now.
She finds out in a very bad moment. And is very hurt by it. And she's, in fact, so hurt by it that it's the first time and the only time for a little while that she's able to go down all 10,000 steps in pure anger, fueled by rage. And I felt it. And when she got down to the end, the bottom of the stairs, she wasn't even proud of herself. She was literally just raging. And she goes to Amren's house, who is having sex with, what's his name?
Varian.
Oh, Varian.
Yeah. At that moment. So, you know, that's not going to be in her favor with Amren. And she's like, how dare you? And then Feyre appears. And that's the moment when, because Nesta was hurt that she was lied to, or that they kept information from her for a while, she tells Feyre, well, maybe you should be mad too, because they did exactly the same to you.
Yeah.
And all hell breaks loose. And Rhys is literally like, Cassian, take Nesta away, or I will kill her. How did you feel about that? That was...
Hated it.
Yeah.
Nesta had the balls to do something that you didn't, Rhys. I'm sorry.
Oh, bird. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
And like, sure, he apologizes eventually for saying that.
Does he though?
But like, it's such like a half-assed apology for literally saying, well, A, to Feyre, because like, you literally threatened to kill her sister.
Mm-hmm.
And B, you literally threatened to kill a member of your court, who is Nesta, who was just telling the truth because you weren't man enough to say it. So,
but I think we also need to look, as I said, her intentions behind telling the truth. They weren't pure. They weren't out of the goodness of her heart.
Sure.
It wasn't so that she was helping her sister. It was literally she just wanted to get back at her sister for choosing these people that have lied to Nesta and like they've treated her like shit. And, like, literally, like, in Nesta's mind, they aren't good people right now. And that's who Feyre decides to keep as her family. And, yeah, in her anger, she decides to just blurt it out.
So when when Rhys is like, take her away, Cassian takes Nesta to a mountain somewhere in Illyria. And,
they go camping, basically.
Well, camping is a nice way to put it.
But before then, that's when Feyre reaches into his mind and Feyre tells him that, you know, I'm mad at all of you guys, but at least Nesta had the balls to tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. On this hike, though, Nesta's very much broken because she hates herself for telling Feyre the truth.
And she acknowledges what she did, and she knew it was wrong.
I was heartbroken when, before Cassian finds her, he says, like, because he finds her running down the streets, and he literally says she is running from herself and what she did. I was heartbroken because I was like, she knows what she just did. She's like, she thinks this is the last straw. Like, she knows that Rhys is gonna be like, this is the end. Like, she's not surprised, I guess, that he wanted her dead at that point. So, and she's literally running away from herself and what she just did. Like, we've all been there. We've all said something that we so regretted right away.
And I think she also thinks that's the last straw.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, that's the last thing people will take from her. And
but
just,
also
like,
for herself.
after that.
For herself. She's probably like, this is probably my lowest low.
It basically was. It's,
yeah.
You know, on this hike, she was unresponsive. She literally was just carrying this heavy-ass backpack that Cassian thrust upon her. She wasn't talking. She would just, like, lie there if she fell.
She wasn't drinking. Like, she wasn't eating. So she literally was gonna let herself die. Because she, and that got me. Like, how she was like, I know I need water right now, but I don't think I'm worth it to, like, ask for a break.
I know.
She didn't even think she was worth it for water. Like, so she let herself pass out.
There's this one quote where she says she had been born wrong, had been born with claws and fangs, and had never been able to keep from using them, never been able to quell that part of her that roared at betrayal, that could hate and love more violently than anyone ever understood. Elaine had been the only one who perhaps grasped. But now her sister loathed her. She didn't know how to fix it, how to make any of it right, how to stop being this way. And that freaking breaks my heart.
I know. That broke mine.
Because she wants to change and she just doesn't know how. She wants to do better, but
she honestly think she deserves people's kindness too.
And that's the confirmation, because by that point in the story, she's been taking strides, like, you know, taking steps forward in her journey, mostly.
Yeah.
And then this happens, and it's like, because she's still, even though she was moving on and forward and making progress, she still had that doubt. And that was the confirmation for her. Yeah, I'm not worth it. And then she has this, like, relapse, I guess you could say. Yeah. And it was, I mean, I think it was important to have it.
No, and I think I like that Sarah J. Maas, like, included that in the story, because, like, mental health isn't just, like, a straight line. Like, we have relapses. We have, like, instances where, like, we get to the lowest low again and we have to build ourselves back up. And I like that it wasn't, like, it was realistic. Like, I love that her journey was realistic in that sense.
Yeah, and it shows that she was in a place where she was still looking for the clue that she wasn't loved and she wasn't worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And then they reach the lake, which is the end of the trek, and Nesta finally breaks.
Yeah.
And she sobs.
Yeah, you feel how tired her soul is in that scene. Like, she's literally tired, exhausted of being herself. Exhausted. Like, she doesn't want to be herself. She would crawl out of her body and her soul if she could. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's rock bottom. And, like, it's so interesting that scene is actually in Cassian's point of view, and he thinks that she's gonna rage, but she actually, like, falls down and breaks down into tears, and, like,
she finally faces too what happened with her dad.
Yeah, and she finally decides to tell Cassian the extent of her trauma and, like, what she's been dealing with throughout, like, the whole year. And then Cassian finally reflects on what she said and, like, his own actions, and every time that he set a fire during their trek, that he must have been triggering her. And, like, he also reflects, like, we all kind of, like, had opinions on Nesta and Akafas, with her, like, being the way she was at that party, the Winter Solstice party, and, like, she was being hateful and spiteful. And then Cassian realizes maybe the reason she was acting that way was because of that big ass fire that was there, with the constant crackling of wood and, like, the snapping of the wood. And he's like, that must have been so triggering for her. And yeah, that really hurt me. Like, that one hit me so hard, because I remember reading this book and we were all like, oh my gosh, like, Nesta's kind of, like, being really spiteful and hateful. Like, it's kind of, like, it's bad. I remember talking about this, and then, like, we find out that she's been struggling and, like, everything's been triggering her at that point.
But also, I appreciate that Sarah J. Maas didn't sort of changed what happened and made it like, oh, it's because, this and this happened that you didn't know about or whatever. Like, no, Nesta was literally like, no, I was being so mean. I was being so
she was
wrong.
being a bitch.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that she didn't like sugarcoat it or make it something it wasn't. It was like, no, I was wrong. I was such a bitch. I thought that my father was, like a failure. I didn't understand why he wasn't protecting us. And in return, I was spiteful and mean and sent my sister out there to feed us and sat on my butt and didn't do anything.
Yeah, because she honestly believed like her dad was basically a waste of space. Yeah. He is an adult and he didn't take care of his children, his 3 young daughters. He didn't care to do that. And like she became so spiteful for it. And that's understandable, but it also doesn't justify a lot of her actions. And she knows that. And she fully says she can't stop from lashing out to those people that she cares for. She literally can't help it. And she like doesn't know what to do about it. And she believes she's undeserving of that love or any love for that example because of how she acted in the past. Yeah.
And she doesn't try to justify it. It's like,
no, she doesn't.
And don't justify it. Just move forward. Do better.
Yeah. And okay, so this is what Cassian said, and like it honestly, it was perfect. So his response to everything that she had said was, I'm going to tell you that you will get through it. Hold on, it's so small.
She literally has glasses. She can't read.
Shut up! If you can see how small this is right now. I'm going to tell you that you will get through it, that you will face all of this, and you will get through it. That these tears are good, Nesta. These tears mean you care. I'm going to tell you that it's not too late, not for any of it. And I can't tell you when or how, but it will get better. What you feel, this guilt and pain and self-loathing, you will get through it. But only if you are willing to fight. Only if you are willing to face it and embrace it and walk through it to emerge on the other side. And maybe you will still feel that tinge of pain, but there is another side, a better side.
Yeah.
And I just feel like those are words that Nesta needed to hear, and also like a lot of readers needed to hear as well. I just commend Sarah J. Maas because this book really hit me in places I didn't think would hit. But we didn't really talk about the plot. What plot?
Well, we are 2 hours and 10 minutes into this first part, so I feel like the plot's gonna have to wait till the next episode. All right, so this is where we're gonna end it for this first part of our A Court of Silver Flames discussion. It's already very long, so if you've made it to this point, thank you very much. I hope you will join us for part 2. Not sure when it will be out, maybe a week or so from now, maybe earlier than that, depending. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find us on social media. On Instagram, we are Romancing the Monsters Podcast. On Twitter, it is the RTM Pod. You can also email us if you want to at romancingthemonsterspodcast@gmail.com. And we have a TikTok, which is Romancing the Monsters Pod, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you can also find me on both Twitter and Instagram at Pros with Bows. No. You can find me at Foes and Lovers on both Twitter and Instagram.
And you can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at But This Book.
And you can find me, Seth, at Pros with Woes on both Instagram and Twitter.
And please join us for part 2 whenever it's posted.
Yes. We'll be talking about part 3 and part 4, and I have some theories I need to talk about with Elaine. Some little tidbits with Gwen.
We'll talk about theories. We'll talk about the bonus scenes.
Join us. Bye.
Bye.